So as we all know, there is a lot of demand for Salesforce professionals these days. And because there is so much of demand for the Salesforce professionals, there are a lot of people who want to make a career in Salesforce or who are trying to pursue a career as a Salesforce professional. Now, the big question or a big challenge for a lot of these people who are trying to get into Salesforce or trying to make a career in Salesforce is to understand what are the possible career tracks which are available in Salesforce, and secondly, to understand which career track is going to be the best suited based on their experience or the skill sets or the kind of work they want to do. While there are a lot of resources available on the internet about specific tracks, but there are very few resources which actually list down the the top career tracks, the possible career tracks for Salesforce, and which one has got what to offer for someone who is new to decide on which is the right career track for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to talk about two things here: the possible career tracks in Salesforce, the top one, the most popular ones, and what sort of skill sets are required for each of these career tracks, so that you can make use of this and learn more about it. The first one is a Salesforce administrator. Salesforce administrators are primarily responsible for doing all sort of monitoring and admin sort of activities for a Salesforce implementation. They are responsible for taking care of day-to-day activities which the end users are not supposed to do or the end users are not allowed to do. For example, if you have to do a data load, you cannot rely on an end user to take care of the data load. So Salesforce administrator can come and play a role there. There can be things like, if you have to pull out a report, you may not want an end user to do the reporting. You will need an administrator there. If you want someone to control the access and permissions or give additional permissions to specific users on a day-to-day need basis, again, you need an administrator to come and do the stuff there. So Salesforce administrator is basically the person who is responsible for doing all these things, and this is possibly the easiest track. This is something which you can get started with in case you're starting with Salesforce, and you do not have too much of a background or you do not have too much of technical skills. You can still get started as a Salesforce administrator. Now I'll quickly talk about what are the key skills that you need to develop in case you are planning to become a Salesforce administrator. The key skills that you would need to have in case you plan to become a Salesforce administrator: you need to have a very strong understanding of Salesforce fundamentals. You need to understand the Salesforce fundamentals very well. The users, licenses, data, data management concept, all those concepts need to be very clear. So that is one. The second thing that you need to you need to understand. The next skill can be user and data management. Third thing would be working on a lot of reports related stuff, and the fourth skill can be doing some declarative development. Declarative development, when I say, I basically mean the point and click development where there is no coding required. So Salesforce lets you customize your applications in two ways. One is with point and click, where there is no need for you to write any code. The other one is with coding. So the declarative development, at least understanding of declarative development is good to have for a Salesforce administrator, and they should have fair amount of understanding on that. So if you have these things, you can try to become a Salesforce administrator. Now, if we talk about the certifications which may be required for a Salesforce administrator, admin certification is something which will be which will really add value. Another one can be an advanced admin certification, and the third one can be an app builder. So these three certifications can be considered in case you are planning to become a Salesforce administrator, but let me call it out again. There is no need for you to have any specific certification. However, having one or two certifications in your resume anytime gives the recruiter a lot of confidence on your Salesforce skills and knowledge. The next one is basically of a Salesforce developer. The next career track is of a Salesforce developer. Now, Salesforce developers are responsible for doing all sort of development activities within your Salesforce environment, be it customization, coding, designing the front end, writing logics in the back end. All these things are done by Salesforce developers. So As I said, Salesforce administrators will be restricted to doing the day-to-day activities of monitoring things or admin stuff. They are not experts in development. Now, any customization which needs to be done, that is usually done by Salesforce developers. Now, Salesforce developers can get involved into activities like, if there is a custom user interface which needs to be designed, if there is a custom logic which needs to be written, if there's a trigger that needs to be written, if there's a batch job that needs to be written, if the Salesforce needs to be integrated with another system, all these things are to be done by Salesforce developers. Now, talking about the skills that will be required in case you're planning to become a Salesforce developer. First thing that you will need if you are planning to become a Salesforce developer, the first thing that you would need is all the skills which are required for becoming an administrator. So those things are there. In addition to that, you will need additional skills to be able to build or develop on Salesforce platform. So if you just want to do the development on the backend, for backend development, you will need skills like Apex. Apex is the programming language which is used in Salesforce for controlling all sort of backend logics. Along with Apex, we also use some query languages here which are called SQL, SOSL. All right. So for any sort of backend logic, these are the three things which you would need to know. Along with that, you will also need to have some concepts around integration. Okay. So when you have to integrate your Salesforce with another system, you possibly will need to understand or know the concept of integration. So that is going to be required. All right. Other than that, in case you also plan to do front-end development, for front-end development, you will need things like LWC, understanding of Aura. Now, Lightning Web Components or LWC. LWC is the new front-end designing framework which is used by Salesforce, which LWC stands for Lightning Web Component. Now, Lightning Web Component is completely built using the core web development technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So in case you are planning to become a front-end developer also on Salesforce, or you are planning to do front-end development on Salesforce, you will need to understand LWC, you will need to understand Aura. In addition to those, you will also need to understand things like HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So these are also going to be needed. In case you are planning to pursue the role of a Salesforce developer, and in case you feel that you would like to add a certification to your profile, the certifications that you can consider are App Builder can be one, which can be very useful. The other ones can be PD1 and PD2. So PD1 basically stands for Platform Developer 1, so which is a certification or a credential that you get from Salesforce that is primarily on the coding part of it. PD2 is the advanced version of PD1, as the name says. So Platform Developer 1, Platform Developer 2, you can consider those. Then we do have another certification which is JavaScript Developer 1. So these are the certifications which you can plan to do in case you are planning to add some certifications to your profile. Next role or the next career track that I'm going to talk about is Salesforce BA, Business Analyst, or we call it Implementation Expert. Now, the Salesforce BA or an implementation expert is very similar to a usual business analyst role for any other technology, for any other domain. Salesforce business analyst is also pretty similar. So the primary roles and responsibilities are to speak to business, understand the requirement, and document those requirements, kind of do a functional documentation of it, and then pass it on to the dev team or the technical team, which is basically then gonna go ahead and do the development activities on it. However, now the only difference between a usual business analyst and a Salesforce business analyst would be that a Salesforce business analyst, to become a Salesforce business analyst, you will need to have a good amount of understanding of the Salesforce product. So Salesforce has got a lot of products which are available. For example, you have something called a sales cloud, then you have a service cloud, you have a marketing cloud, you have CPQ, you've got experience cloud for building all sort of communities and all. So Salesforce has got specific products. So as a business analyst, you are also required to have in-depth understanding of these products, because until and unless you have the understanding of these products, you will not be able to you will not be able to understand which are the out-of-the-box features or functionalities available in some of the products, and which are the ones which possibly need to be developed as new features or functionality. So for that reason, a Salesforce business analyst will need to have that skill as well. So for all those things, for each product, there is a separate certification. For example, there is a certification called Salesforce Certified Sales Cloud Consultant. Similarly, there is one for Service Cloud. It's called the Salesforce Certified Service Cloud Consultant. You have one for Marketing Cloud. There is something called a Salesforce Certified Marketing Cloud Consultant. So those certifications are there. So as a business analyst, in case you want to pursue your career as a Salesforce business analyst, you can certainly consider doing a deep dive into one of those products. Identify. You do not have to do all. You can identify one or two of those, and you can basically go ahead, get started. So for Salesforce business analyst, the skill sets which will be required are, of course, the admin skills. So all the basic skills which were required by a Salesforce administrator are also required for you to become a Salesforce business analyst or an implementation expert. In addition to that, the generic BA skills, everything around understanding the business processes, in-depth understanding of business processes, understanding the requirement gathering process, understanding the documentation techniques and stuff like that. So admin skills, BA skills, of course, will be required. And in addition to that, I would say in-depth knowledge of SF products. So you may not have in-depth knowledge of all the products, and that's also not required. Try and acquire knowledge on one or two products to get into the Salesforce business analyst part. Okay, so if I have to talk about the certifications which can add value in case you're planning to become a Salesforce business analyst or an implementation expert, here an admin certification will be of value. And in addition to the admin certification, you can do a Sales Cloud Consultant or a Service Cloud Consultant or a Marketing Cloud Consultant. So you can identify any of the product. You do not have to do all, as I said. You never need to do all of those, but you can basically identify which one you would want to pursue, and you can get into a little more of that. The next one is basically the track of a Salesforce architect. Now, Salesforce architect is someone who should ideally know almost everything about Salesforce. So he's someone who understands Salesforce inside out, starting from the configuration versus customization, how much of development they should do, what are the best practices they should follow. Everything around that is what a Salesforce architect brings onto the table. All right. So as a Salesforce architect, the expectations will be slightly more than what is expected out of a developer. So if I have to put it in simple words. So if you are a Salesforce developer, you are expected to basically do some sort of development. So you should be able to build a feature or functionality. However, if you are a Salesforce architect, you are expected to help your developers build something which is scalable, which is kind of reusable or reduces the redundancy, and is done and to ensure that whatever is being developed in the most optimized way. The performances are optimized. So those are the things. So those are the things which are expected out of a Salesforce architect. As an architect, you are required to propose solutions which are optimized, scalable, and reduce any redundancies. So that's what is expected out of a Salesforce architect. Of course, you will need all the skill sets which are needed by admin and developer, right? So admin plus dev skills are certainly required. So whatever an admin can do, whatever a dev can do, an architect should be able to do all those things. In addition to that, an architect is also required to have an in-depth understanding of the platform. The most important thing for an architect to understand is an in-depth understanding of the platform, its capabilities, and most importantly, the limitations of the platform. So Salesforce architect should have a very good or strong understanding of Salesforce platform, its capabilities, what is that can be done on Salesforce platform, what cannot be done. He should understand the limitations, because if we do not understand the limitations of the platform, then we may end up building something which is completely not supported, or we will have our code getting timed out every time, or we will start getting errors because we are gonna hit the limits, and most of the times your code will not work properly. An architect is the person who basically brings in all those concepts. Along with these things, an architect is also required to bring in his expertise and knowledge in a lot of areas like security, how the data is going to be handled, how much data we want to store in Salesforce. It's a on cloud platform, so you will always need to think about how much data you want to keep on the cloud versus what you want to store off the cloud and stuff like that. If you have a lot of records in one object, then what will happen eventually when you're trying to run a query to retrieve some data, the query is going to take longer, right? So there are decisions around how much data needs to be stored, what is the best way of storing the data. There can be other things like the org strategy, whether whether a company should have a single Salesforce org or a multiple Salesforce org, the org strategy part of it, and other things like maybe setting up the environment, what sort of environment strategy you want to set up, what sort of branching strategy you want to set up for your DevOps. So all those things. So as an architect, you are required to understand these things and share your views on this. That's pretty much about the skill sets that you will need to develop in case you are planning to become a Salesforce architect. If I talk about the certifications which you can think of or you may want to pursue in case you are planning to become a Salesforce architect, there are quite a few certifications because the Salesforce architect itself is a huge domain. So there are a lot of certifications, of course. So of course you will need something like an app builder and PD1, PD2. So those things are there. The generic developer certifications. Along with that, there are a few specific architect certifications. For example, there is a certification for data architects. It's called data architect certification. There is integration architect. There is a sharing and visibility architect certification. Then there is a certification on development lifecycle and deployments. Then there is another certification on identity and access management. So these are a few certifications. In addition to that, in addition to these, there are certifications like application architect, and then there is a certification which is called system architect, and finally the top certification which is called the certified technical architect. So these are the certifications which are associated to Salesforce architect role. So these are some of the key career tracks you can consider if you're planning to get into Salesforce or you're planning to become a Salesforce professional. I'll just do a quick recap for all of you. So the first one that we spoke about was a Salesforce administrator. So if you can plan to become a Salesforce administrator if you're just beginning into Salesforce and you do not have the coding skills, or you do not want to get into coding but you still want to get started with Salesforce. Salesforce administrator role can be a good starting point for you. The second one is a Salesforce developer. So if you have some knowledge of coding, or if you have already done coding earlier, let's say if you are from a Java background or C++ kind of a background, or maybe you have done front-end development earlier, you can plan to get into Salesforce as a Salesforce developer. So this can be the right role for you. Salesforce business analyst or an implementation expert, you can consider this one. You can consider this one, Salesforce business analyst or an implementation expert. If you have some prior experience of a business analyst, this can be a role that you may want to get into. And Salesforce architect. So if you have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for some time, if you already have some experience behind you and you want to get to the next level, for example, if you are a Salesforce developer with say some 7-8 years of experience, you can start looking at upgrading to the role of a Salesforce architect. So this can be the role for you.